What are we doing here?
Neighborhood. It was the kind of place where your neighbor would look after you when school let out, where your first grade teacher would show up at your law school graduation. It's where Kamala Harris.
Kamala looked real, like this picture right here where you see her with the short hair. She looked like she was what's this, the late 80s or something like that. She looked like she was listening to like old school like Salt and Pepper back in the day then. That's what she looked like in this picture. Oh, sorry.
Be in the middle class, making every paycheck.
Sorry, I'm trying to skip
feet
ahead.
Tall. If you met her, you would have thought she was 7 feet tall. And our mother, if I'd ever come home complaining about anything, she wouldn't have it. The first thing she'd say is, well, just stop the complaining. Just tell me what you're going to do about it.
And since she was a young girl, Kamala Harris has been fighting for families like the ones she grew up with.
That is Kamala. She can't help herself from standing up for people and standing up for what she thinks is right. She has been that way our whole lives. Being a protector is what led her to become a prosecutor. Looking back now, I could say it was her calling.
As a courtroom prosecutor, she went after predators who targeted women and children.
I'm going to have to mute this because I don't know about the music, if it's copyright or not. But again, like, here we go with the prosecutor part. They always say that she went after predators. They don't tell you that she went after parents, locked them up for truancy, Black parents in particular. They don't tell you that. They don't tell you that she participated in the school to prison pipeline in California. They just say, as a prosecutor, she went after predators. You know, both can be true at the same time, but they leave that out. Let me take this out for just a second, because I don't know if that music has copyright. Sorry, guys. Just trying to get them to get to the speech, and then I'll bring it right back in. While I'm waiting for that, I can go to some of the comments, though. Thank you for the super chat, DJB Side. Sending love and thanks for all you do, Sabby. Thank you. Thank you, Sparky. Go Yemen, fight the power. Thank you, Edward. If you heard one talk at the DNC, you've seen them all. That's a good point. Thanks, Roger. Sab, the guy with the glasses, was Leon Panetta, CIA director, then Secretary of Defense under Obama and head of office management, budget, and chief of staff under Clinton. Thank you for that. Thanks, Tisha. No mention of diplomacy or building bridges. Thanks, Samantha. This admin fired vets who wouldn't get the CV. Thanks, Tavis. We don't have anything. Let's see what they can stick. Thanks, Mika. The charade parade. Thank you, Z360. Watching this DNC reminds me that politics has lost its consensus. The politicians are seen as similar to celebrities and their supporters as fans. I agree. The celebrity culture of politicians is a big part of the problem. Thank you, Warren. Jimmy Dore looked so depressed walking around the convention the other day. He said he felt so bad for our country. Thank you, Talib. Wondering what race is on her birth certificate. Don't know. An interesting, I'm trying to think about what the options would have been during that time too. Like, you know, I don't know. Thank you, Roger. Peep DM for my demand to her. Thank you. Thank you, baby Ethernet. She's taking voters for granted. We are the peasants. I hear you. Thank you, baby Ethernet. Maya throwing in that black scent is disgusting. And I'll go ahead and stop it there because I think they're about to go forward with her. 1 second. Charade parade. This one here. And the black scent. Thank you. Thank you for that. Eric, we can get to the rest of them when we do the break real quick. Okay, here we go. Oh, still music again. Okay, so it looks like it's about to get to the point where she's about to come out because they went through the whole like childhood and all that jazz. So here we go. And while I'm waiting for this exit. Again, this is so drawn out. But if you haven't had a chance to do so, don't forget to smash the like button, guys. Thank you so much. And we will do call in after her speech. We're going to end after Kamala's speech. So we will do call in so you can call in and we can chit chat. And we can say a lot. We say a lot more on call in, by the way. Some of the things that we don't really say on here, we can say on the Zoom call in. So yeah. Okay. Has the music stopped? Probably not yet. I'll wait till she gets to the podium. Okay. Yeah. She's happy. Okay, let's get to the speech. Again, no Palestinian American speaker. That's really, really sad. Really sad. And nobody cares. Nobody in there really cares. Most of them don't, because a lot of these people are delegates, right? So they're there because that's part of their job. And some of them are, big time donors. And they're just there to see her perform. Right. So everyone remember, this is their job. They're there to hype her up. So just keep that in mind. They're there to bring the energy to hype her up so that voters get hyped up as well. Keep that in mind.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all. Okay, we got to get to some business. Okay, thank you all. Okay. Thank you. Please, thank you so very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay, let's get to business. All right. So let me start by thanking my most incredible husband, Doug, for being an incredible partner to me, an incredible father to Cole and Ella, and happy anniversary, Dougie. I love you so very much. To our President Joe Biden, when I think about the path that we have traveled together, Joe, I am filled with gratitude. Your record is extraordinary, as history will show, and your character is inspiring. And Doug and I love you and Jill and are forever thankful to you both. And to Coach Tim Walz, you are going to be an incredible vice president. And to the delegates and everyone who has put your faith in our campaign, your support is humbling. So, America, the path that led me here in recent weeks was no doubt unexpected. But I'm no stranger to unlikely journeys. So, my mother, our mother, Kamala Harris, had one of her own. And I miss her every day, and especially right now. And I know she's looking down, smiling. I know that. So my mother was 19 when she crossed the world alone, traveling from India to California with an unshakable dream to be the scientist who would cure breast cancer. When she finished school, she was supposed to return home to a traditional arranged marriage. But as fate would have it, she met my father, Donald Harris, a student from Jamaica. They fell in love and got married, and that act of self-determination made my sister Maya and me.
Like I said, most of us do not have the same upbringing that she had. That's what I was trying to tell you guys.
And wherever our parents' jobs took us. My early memories of our parents together are very joyful ones. A home filled with laughter and music, Aretha, Coltrane, and Miles. At the park, my mother would say, "Stay close." But my father would say, as he smiled, "Run, Kamala, run. Don't be afraid. Don't let anything stop you." From my earliest years, he taught me to be fearless. But the harmony between my parents did not last. When I was in elementary school, they split up. And it was mostly my mother who raised us.
So I have to add this here, and Trauma Queen is correct. Her fulfilling her dreams, how does that help us, the workers? Yeah, what I've noticed is she's making this all about her. And one of the things that was really appealing about Bernie Sanders' presidential campaigns is that, remember, he kept saying, not me, us. She's making it all about her. I don't need to hear another story about her upbringing and her background and all this. I don't need days of our lives, right? Like, I want to hear, what are you going to do for the country? And I think that's what most people want to hear. What are your policies? What's your platform? I don't need this soap opera.
Before she could finally afford to buy a home, she rented a small apartment in the East Bay.
Here we go.
In the Bay, you either live in the hills or the flatlands. We lived in the flats. A beautiful working class neighborhood of firefighters, nurses, and construction workers, all who tended their lawns with pride. My mother, she worked long hours, and like many working parents, she leaned on a trusted circle to help raise us. Mrs. Shelton, who ran the daycare below us and became a second mother. Uncle Sherman, Aunt Mary, Uncle Freddie, Auntie Chris. None of them family by blood, and all of them family by love.
Chances are I'm never going to meet these people. Okay. Chances are we are never going to meet these people. If they're still around, this is not important. What's important is, what is the platform? What are your policies?
Family who taught us how to make gumbo, how to play chess, and sometimes even let us win. Family who loved us, believed in us, and told us we could be anything and do anything. They instilled in us the values they personified: community, faith, and the importance of treating others as you would want to be treated, with kindness, respect, and compassion. My mother was a brilliant, 5-foot-tall, brown woman with an accent. And as the eldest child, I saw how the world would sometimes treat her. But my mother never lost her cool. She was tough, courageous, a trailblazer in the fight for women's health, and she taught Maya and me a lesson that Michelle mentioned the other night: She taught us to never complain about injustice, but do something about it. Do something about it.
And Kamala's response was, let me become a cop.
That was my mother. And she taught us, and she also taught us, and never do anything half-assed. And that is a direct quote. A direct quote. I grew up immersed in the ideals of the civil rights movement. My parents had met at a civil rights gathering, and they made sure that we learned about civil rights leaders, including the lawyers like Thurgood Marshall and Constance Baker Motley.
And you learned all that, and you went on to say later on in life, oh no, I'm not going to sit up here and say I'm going to do something specifically for Black people. So where did all that education about civil rights get you?
Those who battled in the courtroom to make real the promise of America. So at a young age, I decided I wanted to do that work. I wanted to be a lawyer. And when it came time to choose the type of law I would pursue, I reflected on a pivotal moment in my life. You see, when I was in high school, I started to notice something about my best friend, Wanda. She was sad at school, and there were times she didn't want to go home. So one day I asked if everything was all right, and she confided in me that she was being sexually abused by her stepfather. And I immediately told her she had to come stay with us, and she did. This is one of the reasons I became a prosecutor, to protect people like Wanda, because I believe everyone has a right to safety, to dignity, and to justice. As a prosecutor, when I had a case, I charged it not in the name of the victim, but in the name of the people. For a simple reason. In our system of justice, a harm against any one of us is a harm against all of us. And I would often explain this to console survivors of crime, to remind them no one should be made to fight alone. We are all in this together. And every day in the courtroom, I stood proudly before a judge and I said 5 words: Kamala Harris for the people.
And I don't know why we're clapping, because I'm pretty sure other judges say these things too. So I just, oh my God. Oh, they fall for anything.
And to be clear, my entire career, I've only had one client, the people. And so, on behalf of the people, on behalf of every American, regardless of party, race, gender, or the language your grandmother speaks.
I know you are not bringing in regardless of race and gender and all this stuff when you just told Palestinian Americans that they cannot have someone speak on the main stage. You see the hypocrisy with this party? You see this? It's also funny too that she mentioned that, like, and I every client I had were the people. Who else are you supposed to represent? A dog? I mean, are you going to have a cat or a dog for a client? No, you're going to have a human being. This is, what is it? Nobody's picking up on this. How dare you come out on this stage right now and you say regardless of race and all this kind of stuff after you just actively discriminated against a one particular group of people in this country, and you're going to pretend like none of this matters now.
On behalf of my mother and everyone who has ever set out on their own unlikely journey, On behalf of Americans like the people I grew up with, people who work hard, chase their dreams, and look out for one another. On behalf of everyone whose story could only be written in the greatest nation on earth, I accept your nomination to be President of the United States of America.
Just a reminder, everyone, nobody voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 Democrat primary. Just a reminder, folks.
Election, our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward. Not as members of any one party or faction, but as Americans. And let me say, I know there are people of various political views watching tonight, and I want you to know, I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self.
Not above Israel, though. Not above Israel. Always remember this, folks.
To hold sacred America's fundamental principles, from the rule of law to free and fair elections, to the peaceful transfer of power.
We didn't even have one for you. We didn't even have a free and fair one for you in the Democrat primary. What are you talking about? What? Who wrote this speech? I know you didn't write this, Kamala. Who wrote this speech for you? Who wrote this, boo?
I will be a president who unites us around our highest aspirations. A president who leads and listens, who is realistic, practical, and has common sense, and always fights for the American people. From the courthouse to the White House, that has been my life's work. As a young courtroom prosecutor in Oakland, California, I stood up for women and children against predators who abuse them. As Attorney General of California, I took on the big banks, delivered $20 billion for middle-class families who faced foreclosure, and helped pass a homeowner bill of rights, one of the first of its kind in the nation.
I let Steve Mnuchin get by without a scrape because he donated money to my campaign.
Stood up for veterans and students being scammed by big for-profit colleges, for workers who are being cheated out of their wages, the wages they were due, for seniors facing elder abuse. I fought against the cartels who traffic in guns and drugs and human beings, who threaten the security of our border and the safety of our communities.
And you can't control what's happening at the border right now when you were assigned to it? Okay, everyone pay attention. You see what's happening, right? She already had experience working at the border. She was assigned to the border. So now this all makes sense. They assigned her to the border because she already had that experience. So why didn't she do that? Why didn't she do her job? I'll let you think about that.
And I will tell you, these fights were not easy. And neither were the elections that put me in those offices. We were underestimated at practically every turn. But we never gave up, because the future is always worth fighting for. And that's the fight we are in right now, a fight for America's future. Fellow Americans, this election is not only the most important of our lives, it is one of the most important in the life of our nation. In many ways, Donald Trump is an unserious man. But the consequences of putting Donald Trump back in the White House are extremely serious. Consider not only the chaos and calamity when he was in office, but also the gravity of what has happened since he lost the last election.
But then you should be asking yourself, Kamala, why is it that you guys are so close in the polls right now? Given everything that everyone has said when they came onto the stage about Donald Trump, why is it that someone who did all those things, why is it that they even have a chance of winning again? And that's what you need to go back to the drawing board about. That's what Democrats need to go back into a room and shut a door, and they need to try to figure out, how is it that this candidate that you're calling a felon, a criminal, all these different names and all this yada yada, you put all these charges that were put against him and all the things that you're criticizing him about, the way that he governed before, how is it that that same person is close with you in the polls right now? How is that even possible? This is what the Democratic Party needs to sit back and figure out. And I feel like they're not figuring it out because they're not willing to talk to people that voted for Donald Trump and previously had voted for Barack Obama. That's what the Democratic Party needs to do. You abandon a core base of the country, and that is why you are back in this position again. It's quite embarrassing, actually. That's why I think Joe Biden said he didn't believe the polls, because it is embarrassing. The fact that you beat him and all these things happened to him and he still was coming back close in the polls.
Donald Trump tried to throw away your votes. When he failed, he sent an armed mob to the United States Capitol where they assaulted law enforcement officers.
Girl, please. Those officers opened the gate and let them walk right in. Right in. We saw the video footage. And I know you're not talking about throwing away any votes. No one voted for you, Kamala. No one voted for you. If we would have had it Obama's way and we had the open primary, she probably wouldn't be standing there right now. It probably would have been Gavin Newsom.
When politicians in his own party begged him to call off the mob and send help, he did the opposite. He fanned the flames. And now, for an entirely different set of crimes, he was found guilty of fraud by a jury of everyday Americans and separately found liable for committing sexual abuse. And consider what he intends to do if we give him power again. Consider his explicit intent to set free violent extremists who assaulted those law enforcement officers at the Capitol. His explicit intent to jail journalists, political opponents, and anyone he sees as the enemy.
You're going to try to jail people too. You're going to try to jail journalists too. You're going to ramp up the police state as well. You're going to be sicking them on protesters as well.
His explicit intent to deploy our active duty military against our own citizens. Consider consider the power he will have, especially after the United States Supreme Court just ruled that he would be immune from criminal prosecution.
Didn't Tim Walz send in the National Guard against the George Floyd protesters in Minnesota? Honey, your running mate did the same thing.
Just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, and how he would use the immense powers of the presidency of the United States, not to improve your life, not to strengthen our national security, but to serve the only client he has ever had, himself. And we know what a second Trump term would look like. It's all laid out in Project 2025, written by his closest advisors, and its sum total is to pull our country back to the past.
Project 2025 is written by the Heritage Foundation, the same Heritage Foundation where Obama got the Affordable Care, the Obamacare Act from. Okay, so there's that. Trump may agree with some of the things in Project 2025, but it's written by the Heritage Foundation. And there's most of those things that I saw in Project 2025 have already been this stuff they've been doing for years. It's not new, right? So this is just something they're trying to use to fearmonger you again and get you to support the Democratic Party. But if you actually look at what's being proposed, most of those things, it's nothing new. It's not good. Don't get me wrong, as a leftist, it's not good, but it's not new.
But America, we are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back. We are not going back to when Donald Trump tried to cut Social Security and Medicare. We are not going back to when he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, when insurance companies could deny people with pre-existing conditions. We are not going to let him eliminate the Department of Education that funds our public schools. We are not going to let him end programs like Head Start that provide preschool and childcare for our children. America, we are not going back.
We don't seem to be going forward, though, either, because you and Joe Biden and all the other Democrats post Bill Clinton, you were just doing things that benefit your Wall Street buddies and the military industrial complex. So what do you mean? We're not going forward either. You yourself, Kamala Harris, wouldn't even allow a Palestinian American to walk across that damn stage. So you want to sit up there and say, hold up, let me address the audience real quick. Let's think about something. I don't know what happened. Hold on. Let's think about something really quick. Kamala Harris keep telling you that we're not going back, but she wouldn't even allow a Palestinian American to walk across the damn stage at the DNC convention. Can I say it again? Kamala Harris is telling you we're not going back, but she is sitting there discriminating against Palestinian Americans as she allowed Jewish parents to speak on the stage, as she should have, about their son. But she would not allow a Palestinian American who is a freaking DNC delegate speak on the stage, but she want to let you know that we not going back. Make it make sense.
And we are charting a new way forward. Forward to a future with a strong and growing middle class, because we know a strong middle class has always been critical to America's success. And
we don't have a middle class in this country, Kamala Harris. A lot of people are working poor. You guys need to figure that out.
Building that middle class will be a defining goal of my presidency. And I'll tell you, this is personal for me. The middle class is where I come from. My mother kept a strict budget. We lived within our means, yet we wanted for little. And she expected us to make the most of the opportunities that were available to us and to be grateful for them. Because, as she taught us, opportunity is not available to everyone. That's why we will create what I call an opportunity economy where everyone has the chance to compete and a chance to succeed.
What does that even mean? How are you going to do that, Kamala? Don't sit up here and make these false promises to people who really need the economic help, knowing damn well you don't have a plan for this to happen.
Whether you live in a rural area, small town, or big city, and as president, I will bring together labor and workers and small business owners and entrepreneurs and American companies to create jobs, to grow our economy, and to lower the cost of everyday needs like healthcare and housing and groceries. We will provide access to capital for small business owners and entrepreneurs and founders. And we will end America's housing shortage.
I just feel like I've heard this before. Like, I feel like, does this sound like a repeat to some of you guys? I feel like I've heard this before from other candidates.
And protect Social Security and Medicare. Now compare that to Donald Trump, because I think everyone here knows he doesn't actually fight for the middle class. He doesn't actually fight for the middle class. Instead, he fights for himself and his billionaire friends. And he will give them another round of tax breaks that will.
You have billionaire friends too. Some of them have donated to your campaign. Let's not sit up here and pretend like you're not friends with billionaires too. All you mofos, most of those people sitting right there in that arena are in that group. They have connections to those people. So let's not
add up to $5 trillion to the national debt. And all the while, he intends to enact what in effect is a national sales tax, call it a Trump tax, that would raise prices on middle-class families by almost $4,000 a year.
Why did you and Joe Biden keep some of Trump's tax policies? Why did you keep some of the policies that he had?
Well, instead of a Trump tax hike, we will pass a middle-class tax cut that will benefit more than 100 million Americans. Friends, I believe America cannot truly be prosperous unless Americans are fully able to make their own decisions about their own lives, especially on matters of heart and home. But tonight, in America, too many women are not able to make those decisions. And let's be clear about how we got here. Donald Trump handpicked members of the United States Supreme Court to take away reproductive freedom. And now he brags about it. In his words, quote, "I did it and I'm proud to have done it," end quote. Well, I'll tell you, over the past 2 years, I've traveled across our country, and women have told me their stories. Husbands and fathers have shared theirs. Stories of women miscarrying in a parking lot, developing sepsis, losing the ability to ever again have children, all because doctors are afraid they may go to jail for caring for their patients. Couples just trying to grow their family, cut off in the middle of IVF treatments. Children who have survived sexual assault, potentially being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. This is what's happening in our country because of Donald Trump. And understand, he is not done. As a part of his agenda, he and his allies would limit access to birth control, ban medication abortion, and enact a nationwide abortion ban with or without Congress. And get this, he plans to create a national anti-abortion coordinator and force states to report on women's miscarriages and abortions.
Why doesn't Kamala Harris also point out, shame Barack Obama for not fulfilling his campaign promise about codifying Roe v. Wade into law? Why does Kamala Harris not do that? Right? Because he's a part of the party and they're all in like that Clinton, elite bubble, that Clinton circle there. Because here's the reality, folks. Obviously, I don't approve of what Donald Trump has done when it comes to women's reproductive rights, but I do feel like there are some exaggerations. The number of times I've seen Donald Trump interviewed, I have never heard Donald Trump say that he agreed to a national abortion ban. I did hear him say it should be left up to the states. Now, that being said, at the same time, we would have never gotten here if Barack Obama would have fulfilled his campaign promise when he said that was the very first thing that he would do if he was elected. He got elected and he decided not to do it and publicly said he would not do it. Then he tried to blame it on Lieberman as for the reason he couldn't do it. But Representative Ro Khanna told me himself on my show that what Obama could have done was to abolish the filibuster, and we could have fixed all of this. So we would have never ended up in this situation if Obama would have fulfilled his campaign promise. That was one of his number one campaign promise that he had. We're going to jump ahead a little bit here. And we're going to be wrapping
much
up
more in common than what separates.
We're going to be wrapping up pretty soon with this speech. We're not going to watch this whole thing. We're going to wrap up pretty soon with this speech because I'm going to do calling.
None of for all of us to succeed. And that in unity there is strength. Our opponents in this race are out there every day denigrating America, talking about how terrible everything is. Well, my mother had another lesson she used to teach. Never let anyone tell you who you are. You show them who you are.
Well, honey, you definitely show people who you are this week, because you discriminating against Palestinians is just, you definitely showed us who you are. I got to stop it there, folks. I'm sorry. I think her speech is supposed to be like 40 minutes long and I can't. I can only do so much. So I'm sorry about that.